When I was 7 years old, instead of throwing me a softball, my father sat me down in front of a TI-99 4A, and from that moment I was hooked.
I worked in a larger sort of corporate environment, and I did that every day, and money was great. All of those things that you expect from a job were good. And I walked in, I said, you know guys, I've been doing this for 12 years, it's been a good run, I'm gonna go make video games. And they all looked at me and people were like, are you insane? It was a no-brainer, you know? Make people happy and do this job.
In college, I was on the art team for Dungeons & Dragons Online. It just blew my mind that these objects I had made, people wouldn't only see them on the screen, but they would hate them or love them or covet them or strategize for hours about how to get them, and that to me was amazing.
The indie games are always working so hard to give you something you haven't seen before in a game. And that's just what I love about it.
I fundamentally make things. That's who I am, that's what I do. And games let me create worlds, and as far as I'm concerned, that's as good as it gets.
So this is all the baby of Michael Carrier of Zapdot. He came to us and said, hey, I'm getting a band together. And the band was, of course, a bunch of indie game developers all doing their own thing.
IGC started off as an experiment and said, we think that working alongside each other is something that's going to be very powerful.
I've been working from home for about a year, and after doing that, you start to go a little bit stir-crazy. So just having a place to go, a place to work is nice in and of itself. But being able to work with the people here is really the value.
I believe that with all of our talents and connections pooled together, we're all going further than we could individually.
You have people talking about that hot game that came out yesterday, deconstructing it, talking about why it's so good. And on any given day, there's 10, 12, 20 people who we can sit down with and say, hey, I was thinking about this game idea, what do you think? Check it out.
When I come here, I know I'm open to not necessarily doing the work I plan to do today, but for great things to happen.
When you start talking to people who are working on their own games and have similar problems with different points of view, it expands your horizons. I think it makes us more creative.
Our lineage began with Snuggle Truck, which is a bunch of stuffed animals in a rusty truck driving over the border to get free healthcare. The logical follow-up to that, Jack Lumber, where you're a supernatural lumberjack, obviously because a tree killed your granny and you're out to get revenge on the forest. Our next step is a psychological narrative survival game called Discourse. You've crash landed on an island, but instead of a normal survival game where you have, useful people, you unfortunately are stuck with a bunch of tourists, and now they're your only key to survival. We have 3 titles on Steam now with the 4th coming. I think Steam is a really healthy platform for games. We like the ability to talk to our fans, and we can have that one-on-one support, which is really important for a small indie.
I feel like on Steam you see like the full slice of the pie of like everything from Borderlands all the way down to like Nidhogg, right? Where you just have this like wide array of all these different types of games.
Steam has evolved to an amazing platform. Their growth rate has just been astronomical. I believe that's largely, if not almost entirely, due to what the indies have done.
We make the game, we put the game up, we hit a couple of buttons, Steam launches the game.
And now that's brought us to PC, to Mac, to Linux, and ideally, in the next year, it's going to bring us into the living room.
When I'm working on my computer all day, and then when I am done and I want to relax and play a game, I just am really averse to sitting down at the same seat on the same computer and then switching over from work mode to play mode. Being able to sit down, play with a controller is a totally different experience for me.
I think Steam's push into the living room and the Steam OS is brilliant. When people are playing games in their living room with their family, I think that brings families together.
So we were among the first independents that were able to get our hands on the controller, and I played Borderlands, and I was immediately better at that with the Steam controller than I was with any gamepad.
I am super excited about just bringing back couch multiplayer. Having something like Steam and bringing it to the living room, that gives me a huge customer base of players that are, interested in indie games.
Our audience used to be people who were willing to get a desktop, set it up in a room, dedicated monitors and all of that. But the whole idea of bringing the entire catalog of available Valve titles into the living room where you can start to create gaming experiences for the living room, I think is really exciting.
PAX is an amazing show. Just showing your game in general is a very challenging thing, but for us, it's what keeps us honest. If there wasn't real enthusiasm or real excitement for the stuff we're making, we would take that as a real indicator that we may be doing something wrong.
I run a company called Indie Megacorp Corporation, which organizes the big indie section that's down here on the show floor at PAX. The thing that I like the best, and actually the reason that I do what I do, is for all of the people and the community building part of it. Everybody's really amazing, they're very passionate, and part of what makes the Mega Booth great is we also work to build a community around that. So not only are we looking at games, but we're also looking at the development teams, how they can work together and how they can make the indie community and the games community as a whole a better place. I travel globally at this point to sort of advocate on behalf of small development teams. It's great when you see everything come together and everybody's so happy in the network that that builds and how far we've been able to reach.
The game is Robot Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball, and you're kind of in a skate park dance club, and you're just throwing dodgeballs at each other. And it's just stupid, simple fun. That's the kind of game I grew up playing, and that's the kind of game that I love making. I love seeing the reaction, and as a developer, you don't usually see the reaction. There's no replacement for seeing it in person, and it's just super rewarding and makes all the frustration worth it.
We invest a lot of ourselves in our games, and showing them to the public, it's nerve-wracking. We had people in our booths playing our single-player rhythm game, sometimes for 30 minutes, sometimes for 40 minutes. And they'd be bobbing their head, tapping their feet, those monkeys. To see people react like that is really an amazing feeling.
The big change for us for the initiative to move Steam into the living room really is the controller support. Personally, I didn't think that Don't Starve would translate to controller support, but the guys who were in charge of that did an amazing job, and I prefer playing it on a controller.
My favorite moments are when I give the iPad or my computer to a kid and I have to kind of convince them to give it back to me afterwards because they just want to keep going. So playtesting has shown me that this is as fun as I think it is.
Now we can do things like more visual effects, higher polygon counts. Sort of one of my goals is to blur the line between film and games, and I feel like Alienware's version of the Steam box is really going to allow me to do that.
Start seeing some titles from Zapdot that should start really promoting some awesome competitive games. But at the same time, you know, the collective is going to move forward in a way that promotes the growth of the community. And we want to just help people make great experiences because we all win with that.